Hi guys, my name's Tisa and welcome to this week's No Now News. Okay, so for my headlines. Israel confirms airstrike over Syria. Prosecutor in Bhutto case assassinated. Italy urges EU to drop austerity. And today I'm going to talk about responsibility and how I see none. Okay, so I start with Israel and Syria. Today, Israel confirmed that it had indeed conducted an airstrike in Syria yesterday where it was targeting an envoy of weapons that was destined for the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. And why doesn't Israel want Hezbollah to have any weapons? Because Israel and Hezbollah are enemies. They don't see eye to eye. They don't like each other. And where is this coming from? Well, basically, earlier in the week, Hezbollah had pledged that they were going to support the Syrian regime. They were going to support the president of Syria, and they had kind of indicated that Iran might be joining in the fray. And so I feel like this was probably just an instance where there was the exchange of weaponry, exchange of materials. They're trying to get things. They're trying to aid the Syrian regime. They're trying to give guns to the Syrian president's side. And normally this wouldn't be such a big issue for Israel because it's kind of steering clear of this whole situation. It's kind of keeping an outsider look. But the fact that Hezbollah is getting into it means that Israel is now being dragged into it as well. And I mean, to make matters worse, there was assassination attempt on the Prime Minister of Syria's life. I mean, he survived, but it shows that the aggression, the tension, the levels of violence are stepping up. And to make matters supremely worse, America has said that it's not going to send any troops in. I mean, a couple of weeks ago it was saying that, well, for now we're going to sit back and kind of observe the situation, but we're not going to do that. We're going to step in and we're going to fight and we're going to help out if we see chemical warfare has been used in Syria. And lo and behold, chemical warfare has been used in Syria, and they're kind of backtracking. Right now they're making the excuse of we have to run our own tests to see if indeed chemical warfare was used. And then after that we're going to have to do further investigations to see which side, whether it's the president's side or whether it was the rebel side who have been using the chemical warfare. I mean, they're stalling for time. And the polls show that Americans really don't want to be involved in what's going on in Syria. Quite rightly so. They've had enough drama in the Middle East. But I do feel that they could step up their game. You don't have to send in troops to do it, but you could kind of start gathering the international community to actually assemble a group, assemble a convoy that has enough power, that has enough mandate to actually negotiate a solution to this problem. I mean, right now their defense secretary has stated that they're looking to actually arm the rebels, with lethal weaponry. But I don't see that helping. I just think that the more guns get involved in this, the worse. I feel like we just have to turn to negotiations. And as we can see, considering now so many sides are being dragged into it, I mean, now we've got Lebanon, we've got Israel, we've got Iran. It needs to stop because this is not getting any better. Okay, so on to the next one. Prosecutor in Bhutto case assassinated. I mean, this is quite a blow, but I feel like it does reflect the state of politics in Pakistan. Well, basically, Benazir Bhutto was a former prime minister of Pakistan, and in 2007 she was assassinated by double attempts, both by gun and by suicide attack. It was, I mean, they wanted to get her, and unfortunately they did succeed in getting her. And right now investigations are being held, and there's a trial going on to determine what was the cause of her death, who was behind her death. And the head prosecutor, a man called Zulfikar, he was assassinated on Friday. It's really, really saddening, especially that he was in the car with his son, who died as well, and they hit an old woman who's dead. So through this assassination, 3 people have died. And I mean, an especially interesting fact is that right now fingers aren't pointing, like it's kind of hush-hush. And I feel that this shows exactly what the people behind this assassination, it shows that they've actually succeeded in what their aim was. Their aim was they wanted to get silence. They wanted to stop people from picking their nose into this. Why? Because they're trying to protect people. I mean, we've seen that Musharraf, the former president, he came back and he's on trial for being responsible for the death of Benazir Bhutto. And Musharraf is the military's man. He is the military's man. Like, even though he's not in power and even though he can't stand for president right now, they still love him and he's still one of them. And You know, Benazir Bhutto, she was a fierce critic of the military, she was a fierce critic of the Taliban, so they were never popular. So a lot of people feel like perhaps in the first place her death was facilitated by the military. For what? Because they didn't want her to take over, they didn't want her to challenge Musharraf and become the next president. They weren't happy with her like so vocal, being so vocal about her problems with the military. And now that Musharraf is being tried over his alleged involvement in her death, one would suspect, or one would be able to suggest that maybe this is again the military's way of protecting their man. Maybe this is a way of them sending the clear message, let sleeping dogs die. We don't need this investigation to go any farther. And I mean, as if this violence wasn't enough, previously, a few days before, a candidate in a local election, he was murdered as well, and he was not an advocate for the military. I just feel like the state of politics we're seeing in Pakistan right now, where everything is being solved by brutality, by violence, where we're living in a world of a facade of democracy, because they do claim to be a democratic state. But when you look at this, you don't see it. You just see that democracy is dead. And I feel it's time that forces come into place to kind of put the military into check. I don't see who's going to do this. I don't know how it's going to be done, but it has to be done. Okay, Italy urges the EU to drop austerity. I mean, I feel like sometimes that the headlines are kind of trying to shield from us just how bad the state of the economy can be in Europe, in the Eurozone. Well, for instance, this week the European Central Bank has had to drop its interest rates. Why are they dropping its interest rates? Because the inflation is really low. They're trying to get more people to take out loans, to get spending, to get investment going, and they're trying to do this by dropping their interest rates. France's bank, BNP Paribas, has reported a 45% dip in profits from the last year, which means that it's had 45% less profit than it did last year. And on top of that, just over a week ago, Fitch, the credit rating agency, dropped Britain from its AAA rating to just AA+. And the reason why it did this, it's that the austerity is not helping it. There is not looking like there's going to be any economic stimulus that will see the growth that was previously envisioned. And I feel that it's really nice that Italy is actually kind of pushing, or it's being vocal about a need to drop austerity. Because in the past, a lot of the people that have been open about austerity have been kind of the weaker nations, kind of like Southern Europe, Greece, the Spain, the really folding, the nations where the economy is folding. And these nations, they don't really have much of a say, they don't really have much of a power, because they don't contribute, well, currently they're not contributing much to the survival of the Eurozone. Currently they're the ones the Eurozone is functioning to survive, so who's going to listen to them? But I think it'd be nice that Italy, with some power, I mean, it doesn't have the best economy, but it's not the worst. I think it's nice that it's being vocal about it. I feel it's nice that it's challenging Germany to kind of look at other options that don't involve austerity.